Good evening. Welcome to our Mystic Poetry Salon. Don't hear that very often, do you? That's one of the nice things about it. It is a way I pray for all of us this evening that we'll be able to be in closer contact with our souls, but not necessarily in a religious context, more in a literary, musical, feeling context. Tonight I'm going to be reading from the poetry of Jalaluddin Rumi. So let me give you an example of his poetry right now. This first piece is from the opening of the Masnavi. The Masnavi is his great masterwork. It's the piece that he completed before he died in 1273, and it's immense. It's like if Shakespeare wrote all of his plays one after another. Oh, actually he did write all of his plays one after another. Well, it's very much like that. And he created this incredible masterwork that he thought of as the answer to the Quran, but in Persian rather than in Arabic. So here's the opening. Listen to the story told by the reed of being separated. Since I was cut from the reed bed, I have made this crying sound. Anyone apart from someone they love understands what I say. Anyone pulled from a source longs to go back. At any gathering, I am there, mingling in the laughing and grieving. Spirit sees body and soul, no disguising that mixing. But it's not given us to see the soul. The reed flute's cry is fire, not wind. The fire of love calls from the reed. Without love, it is empty. And another short piece. Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and afraid. Don't open the door to the study and begin reading. Take down the dulcimer. Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground.
To write a chant transcription of it that I was hoping we eventually, as a congregation, would recite. And so this is how it goes, and it's kind of a new way of worship in a way, because the Psalms is so, goes into any denomination, practically any ideology. So here's Psalm 130.
Out of the depths have I cried unto thee, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Let thine ears be attentive to the voice of my supplications. If thou, Lord, shouldest mark iniquities, all shall stand, but there is forgiveness with thee, that thou mayst be feared. I wait for the Lord, my soul doth wait, and in his word do I hope. My soul waiteth for the Lord, more than they that watch for the morning. I say, more than they that watch for the morning. Let Israel hope in the Lord. For with the Lord there is mercy, and with him is plenteous redemption. And he shall redeem all his iniquities. Thank you, Jeffrey. Workshopping the Psalms. Who'd have thought? So tonight, as I said, we're focusing on Rumi, but there's a particular reason, because today is December the 17th. And December the 17th is the anniversary of Rumi's wedding day, which is what the Sufis call the day when the person passes from their body and goes to join the beloved, goes to join God. Because though you may have heard of Sufis, you may know some things about Sufis, Sufis generally are the mystical aspect, the mystical part of Islam, and can be traced back to Muhammad and to Ali, Muhammad's son-in-law, and to many others in that early period of the Muslim world, and of course have kept going ever since. But the Sufis would also say they could be traced back to Plato, traced back to the Greek mystery schools. So they have a long, long history, and some of them are very religious, very Islamic, very focused on that, and some aren't. To give you a sense of this, in the Muslim world, if you were to go up to an average person in the Middle East, for example, and say, hey, do you know any Sufis? They might treat that like you'd said, hey, do you know any gypsies? Do you know any sneak thieves? Do you know any fortune tellers? Do you know any questionable characters? Sufis don't always have the best reputation in the Muslim world. I guess some of it must be justified, but I've only heard and met good Sufis. But as with any other group, there are probably some bad apples in the barrel too. So this day is the 748th anniversary since Rumi passed. And so this is the day in Konya, which is the city in southern Turkey in Anatolia, where Rumi lived and where he taught. This is the day when the whirling dervishes hold their biggest gathering, because this is the day when they remember their Mevlana, their master, the one who taught them so much. And after all of these centuries, it is still a powerful, powerful Sufi order, as they're called. They're different orders of dervishes in different parts of the world, but the Mevlevi are very wonderful. And so all of these poems that will be shared tonight were composed by Rumi at one point during his 60-odd years. And the way he would do this, he would start speaking extemporaneously, and one of his followers would jot down what he said, and then later would show it to him and say, so is this what did I capture this? And he might edit it and make some changes, but he wasn't composing it the way a writer or a poet normally would, writing it down, rewriting it, changing it. He just spoke what was in his heart, on his mind, and then would make small edits perhaps later. So this particular work, the Masnavi that I mentioned at the beginning, that first piece about the reed was from the Masnavi, is something like 60,000 lines, which is a fair amount. And it's one long poem. It can be divided up into sections, and that's what people do because that's how we think. But like the Bible, when it was originally recited, before it was written down, you didn't necessarily have it stop and begin here and there. So the Masnavi is a continuing work, and you can tell when you hear some of it, because he'll stop and start and go in another direction and then maybe come back, or maybe not, to what he was originally talking about. But he does it with such skill and such joy and such a feeling of love for the created world, for God, and also for this idea that he and others who are considered dervishes, followers of God, Sufis, mystics, they are looking for the love in the world, because that love is what changes them and changes all of us. So I hope you enjoy these pieces. Rumi has become very popular over the last 20 plus years, since being translated by people like Coleman Barks and Robert Bly, and is now considered one of the best-selling poets in North America. Some people from the old world, from Turkey, or from more traditional Islamic circles, see that what's happened to some of these poems is disrespectful. You know, it's pulling from one culture and making it another culture's. Since I don't read Persian, and the direct translations that I've read tend to be rather awkward, I still like what Coleman Barks and others have written. But I say that what I'm reading this evening is a version of Rumi. It is not an exact translation. And that's important to remember for those that would take that very seriously and feel taken advantage of, or that it's taken out of context. Everything that he wrote, it was based on his great belief in Allah, in the one God, which is, of course, the same as our one God as Jews and as Christians. And so everything revolves around that. How do we be more faithful? How do we be more loving? How do we give of ourselves more effectively? How do we figure out who we are and what we are doing in this world? What is our role? What is our call? What is our purpose? So I hope you find some information in these poems that would help you with some of those questions that might come up this time of year as the year is ending and it's colder and darker, and we realize we're going to enter a new year, and we pray that it's better than the old year. So 3 poems on who and what we are. Who says words with my mouth? All day I think about it, and then at night I say it. Where did I come from, and what am I supposed to be doing? I have no idea. My soul is from elsewhere, I'm sure of that, and I intend to end up there. This drunkenness began in some other tavern. When I get back to that place, I'll be completely sober. Meanwhile, I'm like a bird from another continent sitting in this aviary. The day is coming when I fly off, but who is it now in my ear who hears my voice? Who says words with my mouth? Who looks out with my eyes? What is the soul? I cannot stop asking. If I could taste one sip of an answer, I would break out of this prison for drunks. I didn't come here of my own accord, and I can't leave that way. Whoever brought me here will have to take me home. This poetry, I never know what I'm going to say. I don't plan it. When I'm outside the saying of it, I get very quiet and rarely speak at all. This other one is called The New Rule. It's the old rule that drunks have to argue and get into fights. But the lover is just as bad. He falls into a hole, but down in that hole he finds something shining, worth more than any amount of money or power. Last night, the moon came dropping its clothes in the street. I took it as a sign to start singing, falling up into the bowl of sky. The bowl breaks. Everywhere is falling everywhere. Nothing else to do. Here's the new rule. Break the wine glass and fall toward the glass blower's breath. This next one talks about wines, the many wines. God has given us a dark wine so potent that we leave the two worlds. God made Majnun love Layla so much that just her dog would cause confusion in him. There are thousands of wines that can take over our minds. Don't think all ecstasies are the same. Jesus was lost in his love of God. His donkey was drunk with barley. Every object, every being is a jar full of delight. Be a connoisseur and taste with caution. Any wine will get you high. Judge like a king and choose the purest. not the ones adulterated with fear or some urgency about what's needed. Drink the wine that moves you, as a camel moves freely after it's been untied, just joyfully ambling around.
So translations of Rumi of the last 20 years, influences for me have been the music of Hildegard von Bingen. And this is a Caritas, an antiphon to the Holy Spirit. And this was transcribed in 2017 by Beverly R. Lomer. So since finding these, she wrote 69 of these, and about a little over a third of them are translated.
Before I start the next poems, I wanted to share something with you. I'd like to dedicate this evening's program to my mother, who is in hospice, and we found out this week is having a much more difficult time than we thought. She's getting closer to passing. So she's as comfortable as she can be, but I'm holding her in prayer, as are the rest of my family. And can't help but have an effect, right? I have two poems on friendship. Make sure I'm in the right spot here. Yes. Oh no, three poems on how getting out of your own way can be a good idea. The first one is called Bismillah. Bismillah means God bless us, God be with us. In the name of Allah. One of the great prayers of the Muslim world is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, who is mercy and compassion. Mercy and compassion. We pray to that God. We pray to that God in all traditions. We just use different languages. Bismillah, it's a habit of yours to walk slowly. You hold a grudge for years. With such heaviness, how can you be modest? With such attachments, do you expect to arrive anywhere? Be as wide as the air to learn a secret. Right now, your equal portions, clay and water, thick mud. Abraham learned how the sun and the moon and the stars all set. He said, "No longer will I try to assign partners to God. You are so weak. Give up to grace. The ocean takes care of each wave till it gets to the shore. You need more help than you know. You're trying to live your life in open scaffolding. Say Bismillah in the name of God, as the priest does with knife when he offers an animal. Bismillah your old self to find your real name." This next one is wean yourself. Little by little, wean yourself. This is the gist of what I have to say. From an embryo whose nourishment comes in the blood, move to an infant drinking milk, to a child on solid food, to a searcher after wisdom, to a hunter of more invisible game. Think how it is to have a conversation with an embryo. You might say, the world outside is vast and intricate. There are wheat fields and mountain passes and orchards in bloom. At night, there are millions of galaxies, and in sunlight, the beauty of friends dancing at a wedding. You ask the embryo why he or she stays cooped up in the dark with eyes closed. Listen to the answer. There is no other world. I only know what I have experienced. You must be hallucinating. And this last one, you might be familiar with this. It's a great cooking poem, and it's a great one for us to recall when life is particularly tough on us. Chickpea to cook. A chickpea leaps almost over the rim of the pot when it's being boiled. Why are you doing this to me? The cook knocks him down with a ladle. Don't you try to jump out. You think I'm torturing you. I'm giving you flavor so you can mix with spices and rice and be the lovely vitality of a human being. Remember when you drank rain in the garden? That was for this. Grace first, sexual pleasure, then a boiling new life begins, and the friend has something good to eat. Eventually, the chickpea will say to the cook, "Boil me some more. Hit me with a skimming spoon. I can't do this by myself." I'm like an elephant that dreams of gardens back in Hindustan and doesn't pay attention to his driver. You're my cook, my driver, my way into existence. I love your cooking. The cook says, I was once like you, fresh from the ground. Then I boiled in time and boiled in the body, 2 fierce boilings. My animal soul grew powerful. I controlled it with practices and boiled some more and boiled once more beyond that and became your teacher. May we all have the ability to have a teacher that can really work with us, and may we have even the better gift of realizing who that person is.
Called Orbit by Philip Glass. It was written in 2013 and premiered by Yo-Yo Ma.
A mouse and a frog meet every morning on the riverbank. They sit in a nook on the ground and talk. Each morning, the second they see each other, they open easily, telling stories and dreams and secrets, empty of any fear or suspicious holding back. To watch and listen to those two is to understand how, as it's written, sometimes when two beings come together, Christ becomes visible. The mouse starts laughing at a story he hasn't thought of in 5 years, and the telling might take 5 years. There's no blocking this speech flow, river running, all carrying momentum that true intimacy is. Bitterness doesn't have a chance with those two. The God messenger hitter touches a roasted fish. It leaps off the grill and back into the water. Friend sits by friend, and the tablets appear. They read the mysteries off each other's foreheads. But one day the mouse complains, "There are times when I want sobit. I want this time together. And you're out in the water jumping around where you can't hear me. We meet at the appointed time, but the text says lovers pray constantly. Once a day, once a week, 5 times an hour is not enough. Fish like we are need the ocean around us. Do camel bells say, let's meet back here Thursday night? Ridiculous. They jingle together continuously, talking while the camel walks. Do you pay regular visits to yourself? Don't argue or answer rationally. Let us die and dying reply." This next one is one of my very favorite Rumi poems. It's about an old friend of Joseph, the prophet Joseph from the Old Testament, who comes to visit, and what they talk about. And in some ways, I think it really encapsulates all of Rumi's major themes about relationship, about love, and about the healing power of staying present with the process of God's unfoldment in our lives. You may have heard it's the custom for kings to let warriors stand to the left, the side of the heart and courage. On the right, they put chancellors and ministers and various secretaries, because the practice of bookkeeping and writing usually belongs to the right hand. In the center, the Sufis, because in meditation they become mirrors. The king can look at their faces and see his original state. Give the beautiful ones mirrors and let them fall in love with themselves. That way they polish their souls and kindle remembering in others. A close childhood friend once came to visit Joseph. They had shared the secrets that children tell each other when they're lying on their pillows at night before they go to sleep. These two were completely truthful with each other. The friend asked, "What was it like when you realized your brothers were jealous in what they planned to do?" "I felt like a lion with a chain round my neck, not degraded by the chain and not complaining, but just waiting for my power to be recognized." "How about down in the well and in prison? How was that?" "Like the moon when it's getting smaller, yet knowing the fullness to come, like a seed pearl ground in the mortar for medicine that knows it will now be the light of the human eye. Like a grain of wheat that breaks open in the ground, then grows, then gets harvested, then crushed in the mill for flour, then baked, then crushed again between the teeth to become a person's deepest understanding. Lost in love. Like songs the planters sing the night after they sow the seed. There's no end to any of this." Back to something else the good man and Joseph talked about. "Ah, my friend, what have you brought me? You know a traveler should not arrive empty-handed at the door of a friend like me. That's going to the grinding stone without your wheat. God will ask at the resurrection, 'Did you bring me a present? Or did you forget? Did you think you wouldn't see me?' Joseph kept teasing, 'Let's have it. I want my gift.' The guest began, 'You can't imagine how I've looked for something for you. Nothing seemed appropriate. You don't take gold down into a gold mine or a drop of water to the sea. Everything I thought of was like bringing cumin seed to Kirmanashah. You have all seeds in your barn. You even have my love and my soul, so I can't even bring those. I brought you a mirror. Look at yourself and remember me. He took the mirror out from his robe, where he was hiding it. What is the mirror of being, non-being? Always bring a mirror of non-existence as a gift. Any other present is foolish. Let the poor man look deep into generosity. Let the bread see a hungry man. Let kindling behold a spark from the flint. An empty mirror and your worst destructive habits, when they are held up to each other, that's when the real making begins. That's what art and crafting are. A tailor needs a torn garment to practice his expertise. The trunks of trees must be cut and cut again so that they can be used for fine carpentry. Your doctor must have a broken leg to doctor. Your defects are the ways that glory gets manifested. Whoever sees clearly what's diseased in himself begins to gallop on the way. There is nothing worse than thinking you are well enough. More than anything, self-complacency blocks the workmanship. Put your vileness up to a mirror and weep. Get that self-satisfaction flowing out of you. Satan thought, I am better than Adam, and that better than is still strongly in us. Your stream water may look clean, but there's unstirred matter on the bottom. Your teacher can dig a side channel that will drain that waste off. Trust your wound to a teacher's surgery. Flies collect on a wound. They cover it, those flies of your self-protecting feelings, your love for what you think is yours. Let a teacher wave away those flies and put a plaster on the wound. Don't turn your head. Keep looking at that bandage. That's where the light enters you. And don't believe for a moment that you're healing yourself. This is how a human can change. There is a worm addicted to eating grape leaves. Suddenly he wakes up, calls it grace, whatever. Something wakes him and he is no longer a worm. He is the entire vineyard and the orchard too, the fruit, the trunks, a growing wisdom and joy that does not need to devour.
O Successores was the first Hildegard piece I was honored to play.
It's particularly rich to hear the music of Hildegard, because even though Hildegard and Rumi lived in different areas and at slightly different times, I think they saw beneath the surface, they saw the richness and complexity of life, but also how God works through and in all things. And I think that's one of the great things they have in common. This next poem is called Zikr. Zikr is the practice of remembrance that is said by many Sufis, and it's usually taken from the call to worship. And there's a line, La ilaha illallah, which means there is no God but God. Now that sounds okay. Another way to say it is, there is no God but Allah. But this is the statement. As the Jews have with their statement of faith, this is a statement of faith for the Muslims, that there is no God but God. All is God. Everything is God. We are God. You are God. I am God. All is God. And it's very easy to forget that. It doesn't seem to fit in much of our daily lives. But it's the thing that Rumi comes back to again and again. And you don't have to see it as like God is in a religious context necessarily. It can be a higher power. It can be the mysterious source of the universe. It can be so many different things. But it's however we relate to that. Where are we from? Why are we here? What's the nature of reality underneath what we do most of the time? So, this poem says, a naked man jumps in the river, hornets swarming above him. The water is the zikr, the remembering. There is no reality but God. There is only God. The hornets are his sexual remembering, this woman or that man or this man. The head comes up, they sting. Breathe water, become river, head to foot. Hornets leave you alone then. Even if you're far from the river, they pay no attention. No one looks for stars when the sun's out. A person blended into God does not disappear. He or she is just completely soaked in God's qualities. All shall be brought into our presence, says the Quran. Join those travelers. The lamps we burn go out, some quickly, some last till daybreak. Some are dim, some intense, all fed with fuel. If a light goes out in one house, that doesn't affect the next house. This is the story of the animal soul, not the divine soul. The sun shines on every house. When it goes down, all houses get dark. Light is the image of your teacher. Your enemies love the dark. A spider weaves a web over a light. Out of himself or herself makes a veil. Don't try to control a wild horse by grabbing its leg. Take hold of the neck. Use a bridle. Be sensible. Then ride. There is a need for self-denial. Don't be contemptuous of old obediences. They help. He comes back to that again and again, the importance of our using the morality of our culture and time in its best. You know, you follow the 10 Commandments, or you give unto others as you'd have hoped they would give unto you. You treat others with respect and caring. When we're young, that might seem unimportant or old-fashioned, but as we get older, we realize it's more important than ever. And he comes back to that. He speaks about that importance. Here's one where he goes into another place of looking at how love influences even the sunrise. In the early morning hour, just before dawn, lover and beloved wake and take a drink of water. She asks, do you love me or yourself more? Really, tell the absolute truth. Oh, that's a dangerous, dangerous question. I think I've got a call. I've got to just check that, but I'll be right back, honey. He says, there's nothing left of me. I'm like a ruby held up to the sunrise. Is it still a stone or a world made of redness? It has no resistance to sunlight. This is how Hallaj, the great Sufi martyr who said, I am God. He told the truth. He said, I am God, so they killed him. Because that's the big rule you don't break, right? Jesus said, I'm sent by the Father. How could he say such a thing? Get rid of that person. The ruby and the sunrise are one. Be courageous and discipline yourself. Completely become hearing and ear, and wear this sun ruby as an earring. Work. Keep digging your well. Don't think about getting off from work. Water is there someplace. Submit to a daily practice. Your loyalty to that is a ring on the door. Keep knocking, and the joy inside will eventually open a window and look out to see who is there. Who's there? There's a good question. This next poem I'm sure you're familiar with. It's been all over for quite a while. This human being is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. They may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
Now something entirely different. Hans Werner Henze, in 1949, he wrote 9 little pieces for solo cello, and so this is the Tango, number 6, and Allegro March, number 7. I have Henze's autograph, and it's the size of the forehead of Roosevelt on a dime.
Three poems on mystery, dreams, and reality. This we have now is not imagination. This is not grief, nor joy, or a judging state, or an elation or sadness. Those come and go, but this is the present that doesn't. It's dawn, Hussam, here in the splendor of coral, inside the friend, in the simple truth of what Hallaj said. What else could human beings want? When grapes turn to wine, they're wanting this. When the night sky pours by, it's really a crowd of beggars, and they all want some of this. This we are now created the body, cell by cell, like bees building a honeycomb. The human body in the universe grew from this, not this from the universe and the human body. Here's a slightly different, shorter version of that same piece of the Masnavi, written by Robert Bly. Robert Bly died last month, and he was a wonderful poet and a powerful person who I think did a lot of good, though he became a figure of fun for some, in his work to support men and the importance that men have a lot of trouble with their feelings, it's been said. And I think Bly tried to help men maintain their integrity while opening to their feelings, to their emotions. It was Bly who suggested to Coleman Barks that he actually take on some Rumi poems from old translations and make them into modern English, American English. So this is one that he wrote that was the first poem I read, 40-something years ago from Rumi that I thought, this speaks to me. When grapes turn to wine, they long for our ability to change. When stars wheel around the North Pole, they are longing for our growing consciousness. Wine got drunk with us, not the other way. The body developed out of us, not we from it. We are bees, and our body is a honeycomb. We made the body, cell by cell. We made it. Now, not we as in Burke or Caroline or Jeffrey, but the soul, the power, the divinity that's within this shell made all of that. This one is called Someone Digging in the Ground, and it always reminds me a little bit of a children's book, the way it's written, the beginning. An eye is meant to see things. The soul is here for its own joy. A head has one use, for loving a true love. Legs to run after. Love is for vanishing into the sky. The mind for learning what men have done and tried to do. Mysteries are not to be solved. The eye goes blind when it only wants to see why. A lover is always accused of something, but when he finds his love, whatever was lost in the looking comes back completely changed. On the way to Mecca, many dangers. Thieves, the blowing sand, only camel's milk to drink. Still, each pilgrim kisses the black stone, the Kaaba there, with pure longing, feeling in the surface the taste of the lips they want. This talk is like stamping new coins. They pile up while the real work is done outside by someone digging in the ground. The dream that must be interpreted. This place is a dream. Only a sleeper considers it real. Then death comes like dawn and you wake up laughing at what you thought was your grief. But there's a difference with this dream. Everything cruel and unconscious done in the illusion of the present world, all that does not fade away at the death waking. It stays, and it must be interpreted. All the mean laughing, all the quick sexual wanting, those torn coats of Joseph, they changed into powerful wolves that you must face. The retaliation that someone comes now, the swift payback hit, is just a boy's game to what the other will be. You know about circumcision here. It's full castration there. And this groggy time we live, this is what it's like. A man goes to sleep in the town where he has always lived, and he dreams he's living in another town. In the dream, he doesn't remember the town he's sleeping in his bed in. He believes the reality of the dream town. The world is that kind of sleep. The dust of many crumbled cities settles over us like a forgetful doze, but we are older than those cities. For we began as a mineral, and we emerged into plant life, and into the animal state, and then into being a human. Always we have forgotten our former states, except in the early spring when we slightly recall being green again. That's how a young person turns toward a teacher. That's how a baby leans toward the breast, without knowing the secret of its desire, yet turning instinctively. Humankind is being led along an evolving course through this migration of intelligences. And though we seem to be sleeping, there's an inner wakefulness that directs the dream that will eventually startle us back to the truth of who we are.
Three High Places by John Luther Adams was written for solo violin in 2007. And I learned last night that this is not the same John Adams that wrote Nixon in China. That's John Morgan Adams. And Three High Places, he describes his time in Alaska, and he found his friend, his good friend that he went hiking with, frozen to his tree, his favorite tree. And it was from that he wrote these pieces. So I'm going to play the first one called Above Sunset Pass.
Two last poems. Then the bar is open. On the day I die, when I'm being carried toward the grave, don't weep. Don't say, he's gone, he's gone. Death has nothing to do with going away. The sun sets and the moon sets, but they're not gone. Death is a coming together. The tomb looks like a prison, but it's really a release into union. The human seed goes down in the ground like a bucket into the well where Joseph is. It grows and comes up full of some unimagined beauty. Your mouth closes here and immediately opens with a shout of joy there. And this just to, I think, give a better sense of Rumi's broad embrace of all humanity. Not Christian or Jew or Muslim, not Hindu, Buddhist, Sufi, or Zen, not any religion or cultural system. I am not from the east or the west, not out of the ocean or up from the ground, not natural or ethereal, not composed of elements at all. I do not exist, am not an entity in this world or the next, did not descend from Adam and Eve or any origin story. My place is the placeless, a trace of the traceless. Neither body or soul, I belong to the beloved, have seen the two worlds as one, and that one called to, and know first, last, outer, inner, only that breath breathing human being. Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. And thank you, Jeffrey. This time together, especially this time of year. But please join us. We have some wonderful snacks. We have tea and some wine and apple juice, and it would be nice to visit a little bit. I know it ran a little long, so if you need to go, no problem. But thank you for coming. It's really very special to share in this way.